Today is Thursday. A few do now questions here. This is a type of question that was very frequently missed on the mock exam. Alright, I have answers so far from Alex, Celeste, Emilio, Leilani, Conlon, Ernie, and Violetta. Waiting on 6 more responses. The correct answers that I have so far are from Alex, Celeste, Chris, Emilio, and Leilani. Those are the correct answers that I have so far. And I'm going to go ahead and close this off in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, y'all. The correct answer is B. B. The colon needs to be changed to a comma. This was not the exact sentence that was on the mock, but it was very close. We haven't learned this yet. We're going to learn this on one of the coming Grammar Mondays. But in order for a colon to be there, a full sentence needs to be before it. So before you use a colon, you have to have an IC that comes before the colon. There are a few things you can have after it, but there needs to be an IC before it. According to the Food and Drug Administration is a DC, and that would just be a comma and not a colon that comes after it. Next slide. Okay. What about this sentence? Every day before school starts, comma, I complete my morning hygiene routine, colon, wash my face, brush my teeth, floss, and eat toast. That is what I do, and I do consider eating toast as a part of my daily hygiene. These are tricky questions, huh? Alright, I have responses so far from Celeste, Ernie, Angel, Alex, Emilio, Vivi, Leilani, Angel. The correct responses that I have right now are from Alex, Angel, Chris Lyon, Emilio, and Vivi. I need to get into the habit of not saying some of y'all's last names. I usually say Chris's last name because I have other Chris's, but here I don't have him with other Chris's anymore. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and close this off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, the correct answer is D. D, there's no change needed here. So the colon, what comes before it is an IC. Every day before school starts, that's a DC. And then I complete my morning hygiene routine is an IC, so that is a full sentence. After it is a list, which is one of the things that can come after a colon. You cannot change that to a comma, because if you change that to a comma, that would be a run-on sentence. Alright, what about this one? Because of the new schedule, I get to see my elective classes more often. Microeconomics, art, and Spanish. Think about what I just said about lists. Lists and colons. I hope you're enjoying the bird noises outside. Alright, I have responses and correct responses so far from Alex, Alexandra, Adam, Celeste, Dante, Emilio, Cecilia, Violetta, Vivi. And I'm going to go ahead and close this off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank y'all. And lock. Cool. Correct answer is B. B. So art is the name of a class. If it wasn't the name of a class, it would be lowercase, but it is, and so that's why it's uppercase. And The comma needs to become a colon because that is a list that follows. It is a list of things, and colons are used with lists. Again, we will talk about that more in an entire lesson in one of the coming Mondays, colon versus comma. All right. Couple announcements. Then we're going to talk about author's purpose. We're going to read Animal Farm Chapter 4 and talk about it more closely. You guys have already read it for homework, but I'm going to pause and you guys will answer questions, and those will be your exit ticket. RenStar, all completion and extra credit grades have been put in. If you're confused on what that looks like in the gradebook, let me know. If you didn't get an extra credit, then there's a 0 in the growth goal spot. That doesn't hurt your grade because it's extra points. And so it doesn't affect your grade because it's just extra points that you could have gotten. I decided that if you are already at an 11th or 12th grade level, that I just gave you extra credit because you didn't really, it wasn't possible for you to have a growth goal, and I don't think that's fair that it wasn't possible for you to get extra credit. So you got extra credit if you either met your growth goal or you're already at 11th or 12th grade level. So hopefully you saw your grade boost by like 3 points, 2 or 3 points. In class, makeup for RenStar will be Tuesday with Miss V. So on Tuesday, she'll pull you out of my class and you'll go do RenStar. Missing work or grades, all graded assignments can be found on the makeup work channel of our classroom teams. Just remember that. Any questions about RenStar, grades, grading? I put your score in there too. The score doesn't affect your grade. It's just so that way you can see what you got. Okay, cool. Author's purpose and supporting details. Author's purpose, and author's purpose is his reason, his or her. Why did I do that? What is wrong with me? His reason for intent in writing, so the reason that they are writing. It can be to persuade, inform, explain. Inform and explain basically mean the same thing, or entertain you. Or get you to think more deeply about a topic is basically like the persuade part, right? But isn't like a direct persuasion, like you need to buy this thing, you need to do this thing, but like you need to start thinking about this system that is in our country. Anyways, that's George Orwell. Okay, supporting detail is anything, any part of the text, any character that they use, any dialogue that they use, any decision that they make in their writing that is meant to build up on a larger idea the author is developing. Our text that we're reading, Animal Farm, is an allegory. An allegory is a narrative, so a story, in which a character, place, or event is used to deliver a broader message about real-world issues and occurrences. Very similar to metaphor, except like very similar to extended metaphor, except it's large. It's the entire book. This entire book is an. For algebra, we have no teacher. What do you mean? What is happening right now? It's been 14 minutes. Okay, sending a text. Hold on, y'all. Okay. No, he's got to be somewhere. There's 2 Aldanas, so, but anyways. What was I saying? Okay, so George Orwell is basically trying to compare the government that the pigs set up, or the system that the pigs set up on the farm, to some of the things that happen in real countries. All right. So example here, a supporting detail from our text. This one I've already done for you. You're going to practice 2 like this coming up here in a second. George Orwell tells us that the animals on the farm have commandments that they will follow on the farm. But not all animals can understand the commandments, right? The pigs wrote up 7 commandments. Not all the animals can read or write. And so then the sheep are just like, okay, we don't understand the rest, so we're just going to be like 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, and that's all they understand. What George Orwell is trying to get us to understand is that in the real world, laws are sometimes written without consulting everybody. So that is the larger thing that he's trying to get us to understand when he paints this picture and tells us that all of these other animals don't really understand what the pigs are doing, but they're going along with it anyway. All right, your turn here. So, if George Orwell tells us that the animals on Animal Farm are working unequal amounts of work to keep the farm running, what is he trying to get us to realize? about what sometimes happens in countries or society. What do you think he's trying to get us to realize? Good. I see Leilani typing, Ernie typing, Meredith typing, Emilio typing. Great. Vivi, Darian, Josh, Angel, Dante, Cecilia, Alex, Celeste, Chris, Alexandra, Angel, all typing. Waiting on 2 more, just Colin and Autumn. I'm going to start looking for answers to star here. All right, there are a lot of correct answers. Really good job, y'all. I'm just going to show 3 here. These are, let's see, Josh's, Emilio's, and Mr. Ernie's. Those who actually work never get the benefits or credit they deserve, while the bureaucrats sit fat in the office. The smarter can take advantage of the less smarter. You just want to say smart, so like the smart can take advantage of the less smart. There's a lot of inequality in the world. What I just learned, y'all, is that your algebra class will be async. Mr. Aldana also does not feel good today. I gave him my sickness. I'm just kidding. Here's your next one. George Orwell tells us that the pigs who are the smartest make all the decisions for the other animals on the farm. What is George Orwell trying to get us to believe there? Some people kind of already said this last time. Emilio did, really. Think about what he's trying to get us to understand about the real world. So you don't want to talk about like animals. You don't want to mention like pigs in your statement. Talk about what he's trying to get us to understand about about humans. Wow, Emilio, you're on fire today. Ooh, I like that, Vivi. All right, I'm going to show some responses here. I see a lot of good ones. Ooh, I like that, Autumn. All right, here we go. This one, these are Autumn's, Darian's, Conlon, Emilio, Vivi's, and Ernie's. So lots of things here. Those who know how to cheat the system or use the system to their advantage can rule over those who don't. George is trying to get us, I like that you use the author's name there, is trying to get us to believe that the ones who have the most knowledge are most powerful, therefore will be in charge. The ones who wield power make decisions to benefit themselves rather than others. We can really see that right with the apples and the milk, where they're like, we actually don't like eating these apples and milk. We just have to eat them because otherwise Jones will come back. You guys don't want that, right? Even though everyone is equal, there are always higher beings. This one I really like because this is really close to what happens later in the book. These pigs make this law that says all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Oof. That the smartest get to live a comfortable life while the lesser have to do all the work that involves any kind of labor. And if you don't set high expectations and put yourself out there, people will run you over. You need to speak up for yourself, which the other animals aren't doing. All right, y'all, we are going to read now. While we read, you are going to have exit ticket questions. This will be your exit ticket, even though it's going to be throughout the class. The first question that you're going to have is going to be this, and I will pause the video. At 3 minutes and 40 seconds, so that way you can answer that question. So let me switch my screen over to the audiobook, and we will listen, and I will pause this at that time so that way you can answer the question.
Chapter 4. By the late summer, the news of what had happened on Animal Farm had spread across half the county. Every day, Snowball and Napoleon sent out flights of pigeons whose instructions were to mingle with the animals on neighboring farms, tell them the story of the rebellion, and teach them the tune of Beasts of England. Most of this time, Mr. Jones had spent sitting in the tap room of the Red Lion at Willingdon, complaining to anyone who would listen of the monstrous injustice he had suffered in being turned out of his property by a pack of good-for-nothing animals. The other farmers sympathized in principle, but they did not at first give him much help. At heart, each of them was secretly wondering whether he could not somehow turn Jones's misfortune to his own advantage. It was lucky that the owners of the two farms which adjoined Animal Farm were on permanently bad terms. One of them, which was named Foxwood, was a large, neglected, old-fashioned farm, much overgrown by woodland, with all its pastures worn out and its hedges in a disgraceful condition. Its owner, Mr. Pilkington, was an easy-going gentleman farmer who spent most of his time in fishing or hunting according to the season. The other farm, which was called Pinchfield, was smaller and better kept. Its owner was a Mr. Frederick, a tough, shrewd man, perpetually involved in lawsuits and with a name for driving hard bargains. These two disliked each other so much that it was difficult for them to come to any agreement, even in defense of their own interests. Nevertheless, they were both thoroughly frightened by the rebellion on Animal Farm, and very anxious to prevent their own animals from learning too much about it. At first, they pretended to laugh to scorn the idea of animals managing a farm for themselves. The whole thing would be over in a fortnight, they said. They put it about that the animals on the Manor Farm, they insisted on calling it the Manor Farm, they would not tolerate the name Animal Farm, were perpetually fighting among themselves, and were also rapidly starving to death. When time passed, and the animals had evidently not starved to death, Frederick and Pilkington changed their tune, and began to talk of the terrible wickedness that now flourished on Animal Farm. It was given out that the animals there practiced cannibalism, tortured one another with red-hot horseshoes, and had their females in common. This was what came of rebelling against the laws of nature, Frederick and Pilkington said. However, these stories were never fully believed. Rumors of a wonderful farm where the human beings had been turned out and the animals managed their own affairs continued to circulate in vague and distorted forms. And throughout that year, a wave of rebelliousness ran through the countryside. Bulls, which had always been tractable, suddenly turned savage. Sheep broke down hedges and devoured the clover. Cows kicked the pail over. Hunters refused their fences and shot their riders onto the other side. Above all, the tune and even the words of Beasts of England were known everywhere. It had spread with astonishing speed. The human beings could not contain their rage when they heard this song, though they pretended to think it merely ridiculous. They could not understand, they said, how even animals could bring themselves to sing such contemptible rubbish. Any animal caught singing it was given a flogging on the spot. And yet the song was irrepressible. The blackbirds whistled it in the hedges. The pigeons cooed it in the elms. It got into the din of the smithies and the tune of the church bells. And when the human beings listened to it, they secretly trembled, hearing in it a prophecy of their future doom.
All right, we're going to pause there. Let me share my Pear Deck screen instead of this screen. Unlock your screens, and here's your question to answer. These first few pages build on the idea that A, the strength in opposing sides joining to fight a shared cause, the tendency of humans to create alternative narratives, in order to distract others from the real one, the instinct of humans to benefit from the suffering of others, or D, the animals on Animal Farm creating a contagious rebellion transferring to the other farms. Think about the one that there's the most evidence for. One of these does happen, but it's not the idea that he's trying to build the most. And the other one is more of a summary. So be careful if you hear like the characters' names. That's not really a larger idea or the author's purpose for writing, but that's more just something that's happening. I think I make these questions too hard. So far, I have correct answers from Dante and Darian. Oh, you guys are choosing the other one. The other one. Okay, Angel. All right, I'm waiting on 3 more people. I'm going to go ahead and close this out in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, the correct answer is B. B. So C was the other one that a lot of you were on, and that one does come from that very beginning part that is talking about there's this one piece where they say that the other farmers were actually happy that Jones lost his farm, right? But then that's really the only time that they mention it. After that, it's really about how these farmers are just coming up with rumors the entire time about the animals, and in pursuit of keeping the other animals in the dark, right? So they're trying to say like, oh, they're eating each other alive over there, there's cannibalism, and that's not really happening. They're just trying to say that so that way the other animals don't see that they're actually doing fine, the animals on their farms, and decide to rebel also. D is also something that is happening, right? Like because of what's happening on Animal Farm, other animals are starting to act differently, but that is more of like a summary versus like the purpose for George Orwell's writing. Okay, good job, y'all. All right, this is gonna be your next question. I'm gonna pause it at 8 minutes and 29 seconds. So we got like another can't do math, 4 minutes of listening here.
Early in October, when the corn was cut and stacked and some of it was already threshed, a flight of pigeons came whirling through the air and alighted in the yard of Animal Farm in the wildest excitement. Jones and all his men, with half a dozen others from Foxwood and Pinchfield, had entered the 5-barred gate and were coming up the cart track that led to the farm. They were all carrying sticks, except Jones, who was marching ahead with a gun in his hands. Obviously, they were going to attempt the recapture of the farm. This had long been expected, and all preparations had been made. Snowball, who had studied an old book of Julius Caesar's campaigns, which he had found in the farmhouse, was in charge of the defensive operations. He gave his orders quickly, and in a couple of minutes every animal was at his post. As the human beings approached the farm buildings, Snowball launched his first attack. All the pigeons, to the number of 35, flew to and fro over the men's heads and muted upon them from mid-air. And while the men were dealing with this, the geese, who had been hiding behind the hedge, rushed out and pecked viciously at the calves of their legs. However, this was only a light skirmishing maneuver intended to create a little disorder, and the men easily drove the geese off with their sticks. Snowball now launched his second line of attack. Muriel, Benjamin, and all the sheep, with Snowball at the head of them, rushed forward and prodded and butted the men from every side, while Benjamin turned around and lashed at them with his small hoofs. But once again, the men, with their sticks and their hobnailed boots, were too strong for them. And suddenly, at a squeal from Snowball, which was the signal for retreat, all the animals turned and fled through the gateway into the yard. The men gave a shout of triumph. They saw, as they imagined, their enemies in flight, and they rushed after them in disorder. This was just what Snowball had intended. As soon as they were well inside the yard, the 3 horses, the 3 cows, and the rest of the pigs, who had been lying in ambush in the cowshed, suddenly emerged in their rear, cutting them off. Snowball now gave the signal for the charge. He himself dashed straight for Jones. Jones saw him coming, raised his gun, and fired. The pellets scored bloody streaks along Snowball's back, and a sheep dropped dead. Without halting for an instant, Snowball flung his 15 stone against Jones's legs. Jones was hurled into a pile of dung, and his gun flew out of his hands. But the most terrifying spectacle of all was Boxer, rearing up on his hind legs and striking out with his great iron-shod hoofs like a stallion. His very first blow took a stable lad from Foxwood on the skull and stretched him lifeless in the mud. At the sight, several men dropped their sticks and tried to run. Panic overtook them, and the next moment all the animals together were chasing them round and round the yard. They were gored, kicked, bitten, trampled on. There was not an animal on the farm that did not take vengeance on them after his own fashion. Even the cat suddenly leapt off a roof onto a cowman's shoulders and sank her claws into his neck, at which he yelled horribly. At a moment when the opening was clear, the men were glad enough to rush out of the yard and make a bolt for the main road. And so, within 5 minutes of their invasion, they were in ignominious retreat by the same way as they had come, with a flock of geese hissing after them and pecking at their calves all the way. All the men were gone except one. Back in the yard, Boxer was pawing with his hoof at the stable lad who lay face down in the mud, trying to turn him over. The boy did not stir. "He is dead," said Boxer sorrowfully. "I had no intention of doing that. I forgot that I was wearing iron shoes. Who will believe that I did not do this on purpose?" "No sentimentality, comrade," cried Snowball, from whose wounds the blood was still dripping. "War is war. The only good human being is a dead one." "I have no wish to take life, not even human life," repeated Boxer, and his eyes were full of tears. "Where is Molly?" exclaimed somebody. Molly, in fact, was missing. For a moment there was great alarm. It was feared that the men might have harmed her in some way, or even carried her off with them. In the end, however, she was found hiding in her stall with her head buried among the hay in the manger. She had taken to flight as soon as the gun went off. And when the others came back from looking for her, it was to find that the stable lad, who in fact was only stunned, had already recovered and made off.
All right, we're going to pause right there. Let me share my Pear Deck screen again instead of this one. And here's your question. What is the author's purpose for writing this section that we just listened to? Is it A, to encourage readers to defend themselves when their beliefs are challenged? Is it B, to advocate for the end to war, like to all war? Is it C, to illustrate the imminence of retaliation and consequences to a revolution? Or D, persuade readers to educate themselves of the mental health consequences of war? Imminence means like inevitability, like it's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. Retaliation means like people getting back at you or people fighting back. Cool. I already see a lot of responses. Let's see who we got. Ooh, a lot of right answers. And some wrong ones. The correct answers I have so far are from Angel, Celeste, Chris, Conlin, Dante, Emilio, Vivi. Those are my corrects right now. Waiting on 3 more. I'm going to close this out in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Angel, are you there? Are you still away? Okay, I'm lock it in. Alright, correct answer is C. This is really good. Okay, let's see who picked A. Okay, so here's why I think why not A. Because the word encourage, right? They are talking, right? Like this is sort of like summary. It is a fact that this section is about how these animals defended themselves, and how the humans in a way are also defending themselves. But it's not exactly encouraging readers to do so, because there's a lot in there about like some of the consequences that are happening during this war, right? You have Boxer, Pobrecito Boxer is like all sad because he thinks he killed somebody. There are people who are getting hurt. So there's not really like an encouraging there. The encouraged word ruins it. Versus like C is just showing, it's painting a picture for us about how like retaliation will happen because the humans are fighting back. And that there are consequences also, right? People are getting hurt, people are dying, the animals are feeling bad. Like there's a lot going on here. So that's why C. All right, this will be one of your final questions, and I will pause again at 9 minutes and 59 seconds, which will be the end of chapter 4, so that way you can answer this question, and then there will be one more that's just a free response.
The animals had now reassembled in the wildest excitement, each recounting his own exploits in the battle at the top of his voice. An impromptu celebration of the victory was held immediately. The flag was run up, and Beasts of England was sung a number of times. Then the sheep who had been killed was given a solemn funeral, a hawthorn bush being planted on her grave. At the gravesite, Snowball made a little speech, emphasizing the need for all animals to be ready to die for Animal Farm if need be. The animals decided unanimously to create a military decoration, Animal Hero First Class, which was conferred there and then on Snowball and Boxer. It consisted of a brass medal. They were really some old horse brasses which had been found in the harness room, to be worn on Sundays and holidays. There was also Animal Hero Second Class, which was conferred posthumously on the dead sheep. There was much discussion as to what the battle should be called. In the end, it was named the Battle of the Cowshed, since that was where the ambush had been sprung. Mr. Jones's gun had been found lying in the mud, and it was known that there was a supply of cartridges in the farmhouse. It was decided to set the gun up at the foot of the flagstaff, like a piece of artillery, and to fire it twice a year. Once on October the 12th, the anniversary of the Battle of the Cowshed, and once on Midsummer Day, the anniversary of the rebellion.
All right, let me move back to the Pear Deck here. All right, here's your next question. In the previous pages, so the ones that we read before these, George Orwell creates a concept of unity amongst the animals. Typos, Hernandez, typos. So the animals are all fighting together. And then in these final pages that he just wrote, George Orwell, A, shows how their concept of unity is flawed. B, provides reasons why the animals should be skeptical of the humans. C, shows how similar the animals' unity is to humans. Or D, provides further examples that support this concept of unity. Think specifically about how they're all fighting together, yet then they give out rewards or honors only to specific people. And then also pay close attention to the fact that, like, there were two levels of awards, which I think was kind of messed up because they gave the second class award to actually the one who died for the cause. All right, I have 10 responses. Let me see what direction we're headed in here. Ooh, a lot of right answers. So far, I have right answers from Alex, Alexandra, Conlon, Dante, Darian, and Vivi. Oh, I could see the argument for the other one people are choosing. I might need to change that answer for the next classes. I'll accept 2 answers. I'll also accept the answers that right now Adam, Emilio, and Violetta have also chosen. Alright, I'm going to close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. Come on, Leilani. Come on, Cecilia. Oh, okay. Alrighty. The correct answer that I had originally thought of was A. I can now see the argument for C also. But the reason that I chose A is because they're all fighting together, right? They're all going towards one cause. And then the minute it ends, it's like boom, there's a hierarchy again, right? The pigs are the ones giving out the awards. Of course, Snowball gets one, then Boxer gets one, and then the sheep that died gets a second class award. It's like, oh, okay, I know you died, but you're not as important as the strongest person on the team and the person who led the thing. Even though Snowball didn't really do all that much. But anyways, and so the minute the fighting's over, it goes back into like there's a divide. C, I think, was the other most popularly chosen answer, and I think that that can also be argued for if you're saying that that's how humans act also. So I'm probably going to change that one for other classes because then there's two answers. All right, here's your last question. This one you just answer on your own here. I'll make this one student pace in case you need to go back and check the definition from the slide earlier. And then once you're done with this question, you're good to go. Remember, I think it's on slide 7, where I put the definitions. If you need to refresh yourself, just put them in your own words, please. Ernie, author's purpose correct so far. Same Autumn, same Darian, same Emilio. Correct, Josh. That is good. Good answers to both. Very good, Vivi, for both definitions. Chris, first definition is correct so far. Celeste, looking good. Looks like both definitions are going to be correct. Once you're done answering that question, you can go ahead and log off, and I will see you guys tomorrow. You don't have any reading to do tonight. We'll work on writing tomorrow. Bye, Autumn. Bye, Emilio. Bye, Violetta. Bye, Celeste. Bye, Angel. Bye, Eth Conlin. Bye, Cecilia. Goodbye, Darian. Goodbye, Alexandra. Bye, Joanna.